Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into the evidence for a creator, but we're looking at it as a rational inquiry, not just a matter of faith. The material we're exploring today frames this whole thing as a journey, a path from doubt to conviction, using clues from the universe, from our own minds, and even from the logic found in Scripture. So let's get into it. So, right off the bat, here's the big question we're tackling. Can you actually find rational, logical evidence for God? Now, what's interesting is that the source material we're digging into doesn't treat this as just a journey of blind faith. It's asking a pretty bold question. Can logic actually lead us to certainty? So, to build its case, the source breaks down the evidence into four main categories. We're going to look at the rational proofs, the stuff we can see in the universe's design. Then there's the psychological evidence, the proof from within ourselves. After that, we'll touch on the sensory or tangible feelings, and finally, what it calls legal proofs, which are basically logical arguments drawn straight from Scripture. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the question of existence itself. Then, we'll explore this idea of perfection in the universe. From there, we'll look inward at the proof within ourselves, and then unpack the proof from Scripture. Each step is really designed to build on the one before it, all leading to this final idea of a path to certainty. Okay, first up, a question of existence. Before we even jump into any of the proofs, the source does something pretty clever. It sets the stage for this whole thing not as a dry lecture, but as a real conversation, a dialogue between someone who's full of doubt and someone else who's totally certain. And honestly, this is what makes the approach so interesting. It's not just a checklist of facts. It's presented as a dialogue. You've got one character who is confused, hesitant, asking all the tough questions, and on the other side, you have someone who's confident and ready to lay out the evidence. This back and forth is basically what's going to guide us through all the arguments. All right, let's dive into the first big piece of evidence, the proof of perfection. This argument asks us to shift our focus and look outward to find clues in the incredible meticulous order of the universe itself. The main idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. The source argues that chance, if you just leave it to its own devices, creates randomness and chaos. It doesn't naturally build the kind of intricate, predictable, and orderly systems that we see literally everywhere around us. This slide just lays that contrast out perfectly, doesn't it? In one corner, you have chance, which leads to randomness, chaos, accidents. And in the other, you have perfection, which implies order, precision, and design. The argument being made is that everything we see in the universe fits squarely in that second column. And to make this less abstract, the source points to some amazing examples. Things like the clockwork precision of the planets in their orbits, the universal laws of physics that never ever break, and the mind-boggling complexity packed into a single strand of DNA. The question it leaves you with is, could all of this intricate order really just be some kind of random accident? Okay, so we've looked out at the vastness of the cosmos. Now we're going to turn that focus inward. Section 3 is all about the proof within, the psychological and sensory evidence that the source suggests we can all find inside ourselves. So the source points to an experience it claims is pretty much universal. The idea is that in our absolute toughest moments, when we're in need or facing disaster, there's this kind of built-in, instinctual reflex to turn to something higher. It's presented as this deeply human psychological truth. And this connects to what the source calls tangible evidence. Now, just a heads up, this doesn't mean something you can literally hold in your hand. It's talking about an inner perception. When you see effects like mercy or creation in the world, and you combine that with that internal feeling that we need something beyond ourselves. All right, our final category of proof comes from Scripture. The source calls this legal evidence. But what's really interesting is how it's presented. It's not just a command to believe. It's framed more like a logical puzzle, a deduction based on a foundational text. This verse right here is the basis for that whole logical argument. Notice, it's not just making statements, it's asking a series of questions. And these questions are specifically designed to logically walk you through the possibilities of how we came to exist. Okay, so let's follow the logic here. Possibility number 1. Were we created by nothing? The argument dismisses this as impossible. Okay, on to possibility 2. Did we create ourselves? Also deemed impossible. So the text argues that if you eliminate those two options, the only conclusion left standing is that a creator is necessary. It's a process of elimination. And this is where it all clicks together so neatly.
The source points to another verse that talks about seeing signs in the horizons and within themselves. This links the scriptural proof all the way back to the other two arguments we talked about, the evidence in the universe around us and the evidence inside of us. The idea is that they're all pointing to the exact same conclusion.
And that brings us to our final section, the path to certainty. This is where that whole journey from confusion to clarity, as the source lays it out, finally reaches its destination. This quote from that character who started out so perplexed is meant to capture that aha moment. It's that feeling when, after looking at the evidence from the cosmos, from within, and from scripture, the result isn't just an intellectual nod. It's a feeling of total, overwhelming clarity. So, when you boil it all down, the ultimate message from the source isn't just about the proofs themselves. It's about the process. It argues that the real path to conviction comes from sincere contemplation and a fair-minded approach. The point seems to be that it's not just about what you see, but how you choose to look. And so we're left with this final question to chew on. The source material puts so much value on the search itself. And it really makes you think, no matter what the topic is, what does sincere inquiry actually mean to you? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.